And we're back. Peaches is dying.
I saw it in the chat. You're licking your lips and blowing kisses my way, and I just read it, and I was like, wait a minute. I know that. And I read it again, and I was like, but that don't mean I'm going to give it away. And I was like, that's Christina Aguilera.
That's funny.
Oh, I love it.
You know what I thought about while we hit the button?
What?
Is that the people on Zoom hear the audio running through the mixer before it goes live. So while they're sitting there in Zoom waiting for us to come on, they're sitting in silence. If they've got their headphones in and that pops on out of nowhere, it's got to scare the shit out of them every time. It would make me jump. I'd be like, oh, shit. Wasn't expecting that, you know?
That's funny.
All right. So we have a letter to read.
We do.
And then I think 2 or 3 Zoom calls. I don't know how many Zoom calls we have, but let's start with the email or the letter. Let's go through that first.
All right. A thank you to everyone. Dear Chris and Peaches, from the time I have written this email, it has been 231 days since my life was impacted by you both. While I am not at the best at words, I will do my best. Words are hard sometimes. Bro, I get it. The first thing I want to thank you for is that you taught me that communication done in the right setting and tone is needed for growth. While there is always work to be done, I have been making progress in better communication with my husband. Emotional conversations have never been my strong suit. You gave me ways to explain to my husband my thoughts and feelings in a healthy manner. Being able to express when I need the extra mental strength or that I am feeling really down has been scary, but so worth it. You gave me healthy ways to bring up concerns that needed to be addressed. Heavy topics such as joking about divorce. I never realized how much those messed with me. He no longer jokes about them. If he slips, he will catch it and then apologize. The topic of his choice of escapism was the hardest one, and you guys walked me through it piece by piece.
That's pretty dope.
My self-worth and how I viewed myself. I wasn't afraid of how he would react. I was scared of how he would view me. Joke's on me, my husband's got me. I never gave him the time to really discuss issues that he or I had until you two told me I was wrong. He has yet to view me any different. There are small things that I noticed I started to enjoy more because of both of you. Simple intimacy such as car karaoke brings a different feeling of connection. He dedicates so much of himself to make sure that I'm happy. My husband drove an entire trip with a hurt tailbone in a car that wanted to quit just so I could meet some really awesome strangers on the internet. My husband's got me. The next topic I will probably discuss every email because it has so much meaning to me, and I will forever hold a place in my heart. I will forever hold a place in my life, the community you have created. I have always struggled with a sense of belonging in life. I never really fit into a specific group. I rotated through life on survival. That day I found the podcast, everything changed. Many years I struggled with my self-worth and image of myself. My confidence was non-existent outside of work. My relationship was rocky, but hanging on by a thread. I was angry and stuck in a spiral of negativity. There were days that I didn't even understand why I was here. I could not fathom what possible purpose my life had. I became overweight in high school and was the target of the bullies. I didn't realize how much that had impacted my life. Life very much felt like it was on survival mode for over 2 decades, and I was barely making it through. March 7th is a day that I will celebrate every year, the day I found my community. The people you have supporting you are absolutely amazing. Each individual brings their own little spark to the chaos, uplifting and cheering on complete strangers. It's a place I can come into and feel welcomed instantly. I will never be able to say this in person as I'm already bawling now. So if you two could thank a few people for me. Janae. I do that just to make you chuckle.
Yeah. The first time I read it, that's just the way it was. It's been that way ever since.
You have been such a blessing in my life. From the moment we first connected, I knew you were someone I needed in my life. You have taught me that it's okay to have bad days. The bounce back is better than the fall. You bring joy to those around you, especially me. I have spent countless hours dedicating your time to helping others. You have spent Did I read that right?
Mm-hmm. Sounded right.
You,
And I hear what you're saying. So even
right.
if you say it wrong, my brain registers it right.
Dope.
Unless I'm looking at you and like hyper fixating on what you're saying, it's like reading a word wrong. My brain still reads it. I know what you meant. Like, yeah.
You have listened to me sob about stress, excitement about work, and just my entire life. You have given me a space that I know is safe no matter what. Quite honestly, you have saved me from doing some very stupid things. I value you, and you are very much appreciated. Zach, you asshole. No. I'm kidding. That's not what it says. I made it spicy. Zach, you butthead. You teach me something new every day, whether it be how concrete is poured, Graham's number, a new word, or my favorite, new ways to look at life. You were the first person to really explain to me that my trauma did not have to control my life. A complete stranger helping a stranger. You are such a gentle soul. I never would have thought a stranger would come to save my life in a time I didn't even know that I needed it. I will always value you and appreciate you. Chris, Peaches, Zach, Jenna, and everyone else in this community drives me to be better every day. I'm a better wife, daughter, aunt, sister, and boss because each of you. Every day is a learning opportunity. I've learned that I am not alone in the way that my brain works. There are healthy ways to work through your trauma. I am not any less than. My worth matters. I am not alone in having bad days. Not every single day will be your best, but as two really inspiring people once said, you are the author of your own story. Oh, you fucker. That was so good. Always with the most love, baked Danish. That was good. She fucking fibbed at the beginning. I'm not good with words. I hope this comes out good. You knew what you were doing. Little sneaky snake. Are we ready?
Mm-hmm. I am. If you read them in order, we have whoever was in Zoom is there.
All right. We're just jumping off the diving board. Sensory overload. Hi, Chris and Peaches. I had to watch some of your TikToks in the early days and then graduated to binging all your podcast episodes on my commute the past 2 weeks. Did it in 2 weeks. Congratulations. I recently subscribed to your YouTube and actually shared it with my best friend, where we now have coffee and talk about them together. I love that you two are not only viewed differently in the eyes of how society should look, but also love how transparent and honest you both are. It's truly a breath of fresh air. I have been pretty quiet, just listening in and really soaking in what you both have to say while taking all of the advice you have to offer. A little bit about us. I am a 28-year-old flight attendant who loves the outdoors. Oh, I bet that's such a cool job.
That's what Nikita did.
I know. Oh. In another lifetime, my dreams.
Yeah.
I'd want to do international flights.
Yeah.
Like I'm in Paris. Let's go, bro. Babe, daddy.
Dude.
I'm with the most amazing man for 3 years and 2 forever. Fantastic sentence. He is 26, a carpenter building tiny homes. We have 2 dogs together and are really living our best life, learning and growing together. I'm going to be honest. I read the tiny homes. I'm like, are y'all even real?
Yeah.
Like, this is such a cool life. My man has the most admiring work ethic, the kindest heart, ability to have deep conversation and makes me laugh. Pee myself, snort, laugh. Good for you. We have really great communication skills and throughout the years have learned that we need and what we need and expect of each other. We don't drink or do drugs. We travel, camp, play board games together, and do lots of walks. We both gym, eat healthy, and keep each other on our toes. He provides 3/4 of our lives, and I keep up with the majority at home. The 1/4 is my flight attendant job, and that's because it's my dream career, and I get to bring in travel to our lives. Oh, he gets to fly for free?
I don't know.
Emailer, does he get to fly for free?
So actually, since I've sent this, I am now in a paramedic course, but when I was doing flight attending, I got my flights for tax. So I wouldn't pay like base fare or anything. We just paid for taxes, and I was allowed to bring my significant other with me for that same cost.
Okay.
How much were taxes?
Um, well, I was working for a company that was not like huge, so it was basically from Canada to the States and Mexico,
Mhm.
and taxes are like maybe $50.
That's dope.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
That is pretty cool. Back into the email. We don't and won't have kids as neither of us see it in our future. Want to be able to enjoy the lifestyle we started to build together and strongly focus on us. I grew up with a complicated relationship with my mother, going through a very toxic divorce since I was 5 and had to give up a lot of my childhood to help raise my 3 younger brothers. I moved around a lot, once or twice a year, and got used to being the new kid. Recently, my stepdad, who stepped in when I was 6 and helped raise me as a second father, is now going through a separation with my mother as well. I dated someone for 6 years, my first love, teaching me what love does not look like. Always being number 2, emotionally, financially, and physically abused with yelling and lots of name calling. In my mind at that age, I thought it was normal. My other half grew up in a broken home as well, but his lifestyles were very different from mine, as well as not ever having a girlfriend and just doing his thing. We both overcome a lot, including taking time before meeting another to focus on ourselves and to work on our own past traumas. This is the only healthy relationship, minus my brothers, that I've ever had. We don't yell, no name calling, and no petty arguments. He would never lay a hand on me or make me feel like I'm less than. He also makes me feel like his constant number 1. I never have to worry about not trusting him because he'd never give them the time of day. I trust him in ways that I never knew I was capable of. I don't treat him as a person of the past. I do not treat him as a past person, as he is his own person, and I get to call him my man. He is my safe place, and I'm so happy I can count on him. It truly feels like it's us against the world.
Love that.
Oh, there's pictures. Oh, look at the little doggos. That's so dope. Thank you for including pictures. Here's why I wanted to reach out. No relationship is perfect, and we still learn things and grow and try to do better. I am sensitive. However, I've recently found out that I get sensory overload. Being with my other half, he's always let me feel my feelings and does a great job of being there for me, especially when we're out and he sees the signs that I need to leave. I'm starting to learn to navigate through the sights, taste, and specifically the sounds. He is a loud man and a goofy kid sometimes. I love it about him, but there are days I get so easily irritated towards him. I don't want him to change who he is. I just want to find ways that I can continue to better myself and navigate through it. You guys have mentioned the difficulties of illness being there, that it doesn't change, it just gives you a diagnosis. I've always known this about myself. In fact, it's one of the reasons I have such a complicated relationship with my mom. I was always told, you're being dramatic, you're too sensitive. I have my bad days, but I also have really good days and feel like I appreciate life in a different way. However, now that I'm learning to be myself and learn how to properly live through these feelings, or live with these feelings, I notice that I get easily irritated towards him. I recognize when it's happening. I usually go to a quiet place or take a minute of self-care, then revisit him when I'm not as overwhelmed. Is there anything else I can do?
Yeah, we deal with this.
Mm-hmm.
And we literally just say, I'm overstimulated right now. I need a minute. Because there are times that I'm clearly under your skin. I can see it on your face. And you're like, babe, I'm really overstimulated. Like, not right now. And I'm like, okay, I didn't know. I'm sorry. And I'll walk out of the room, or I'll go play with my camera or go on my computer until you're not overstimulated anymore. Being that we both understand what that feels like, maybe that's a little bit easier because we've both been there. And if he's never experienced that, he may not understand. But just being able to verbalize that, I'm not aggravated with you or at you, I'm aggravated because I'm overstimulated, and this is adding to that overstimulation.
Yeah.
The verbiage matters. If you say I'm frustrated right now, you can be frustrated at 1,000 things, but the person that you're listening to is going to hear I'm frustrated with you.
Yeah.
So simply saying I'm overstimulated is enough for me.
Yeah.
Get it?
There are times where I'm in such a whirlwind, all I can get out of my mouth is everybody stop moving.
Yeah. Yep. I've heard you yell it to the kids a couple times.
Yeah.
It's
Just everybody stop.
funny. I need
Yeah,
everyone
and
to
I think
stop moving.
sorry, part of it too is that I feel like there's so much going on, and on top of that, I'm gonna go and see if I have ADHD that kind of like gets involunteered into that. Um, just because like it's him, and sometimes the dogs can be a lot, and like there's just a lot going on at the moment, and I'm pretty good at being like, well, I'm overstimulated. I need a second, and like sometimes he can recognize it before I even know that it's happening. Um, which is really, really weird and really, really cool when you have that person be able to see it in you before you can even see it in yourself.
Mhm.
I just feel really bad having to take a moment because all he's trying to do is put a lot of good into it and like make sure that I'm okay. And I just don't have the capacity of emotions to be like, to kind of see the logic behind it, I guess.
What do you mean, see the logic behind it? Of him trying to make you happy?
Yeah, so he's like more of my voice of reason, and I kind of am more of the emotional one. So even if he notices that I am being emotional and he sees it before I do,
Mhm.
he'll notice that I'm overstimulated, and I haven't really processed that I'm overstimulated just based on how my surroundings are.
Okay.
So if I were to like be emotional and I'm like overstimulated, I feel like I react in the moment, whereas he knows that I'm overstimulated and he like kind of helps guide me into that sense.
Okay. And is that when like that's too much for you when he's trying to guide you?
Yeah, because I feel like he wants to be able to help,
Okay.
but at the same time, I don't really want the help because I don't see it yet. Like I haven't processed that that's what's happening. Like I haven't processed that I'm being overstimulated.
Have you communicated that?
You got to keep in mind too that men are fixers.
Yeah.
So the moment we think that there's an issue, we go to fix mode. We want to
Right.
fix whatever the problem is. We do it to ourselves. Like that's just who we are. So that's if you're overstimulated and that's just the way that you are about something, you got to understand that he's a fixer and that's just the way he's going to be.
Yeah.
You guys need to have grace with each other in that.
I would find what you need in moments like that. Like, so instead of him going into fix it mode and trying to coax you out of the overstimulated, give him something else that he can do. Whether that is, hey babe, go take 5 minutes. I can see you're getting worked up. Or he can go grab you your favorite blanket and leave you alone until you're out of the blanket.
Yeah, one of the things that he actually is really good for is he'll go and draw me a bath because I
Mhm.
really love my bubble baths. And if he's like, take a minute, do what you need to do, and then come back out. And then if you feel better, we can do that. Otherwise, especially because right now we're in a basement suite, so it's a little bit smaller and there's not a whole lot of space that we can kind of separate to, but I still have like my room and he has his desk and he does his own thing.
Mhm.
Um, I just know that at the end of the day, if we're busy or we haven't seen each other for a while and he really wants to hang out with me, but I've been out socializing or been at work and I'm overstimulated from just how many times I've had to talk to people. If I come home, I haven't really had that time to decompress, I guess. And he's just like super excited to see me. Our hours are a little bit different. But then he also at the same time understands that it's the exact same when he comes home. I'm excited to see him, but he hasn't had the time to decompress.
Mhm.
Um, but even that little like boot thing that you guys had mentioned at the beginning, I had mentioned it to him and he was a little bit weirded out with the idea at first. And even just doing that and then letting him go and decompress, he was obsessed with that.
I love that.
There's there's a sense of humility that a lot of men have to go through in order to enjoy that.
Mhm.
But that there is um, I am here for you in that in a way that most men will never be able to experience. Because when a woman says like, "I'll never do you dirty. I'm here for you. I'm your teammate," all of that shit, it's lip service.
Mhm.
Because most men believe that hell hath no fury like a woman scorned, and the moment y'all get mad at us, all that love shit's out the window, and we are now being attacked. So like, acts of service for your man is going to hit a whole lot different than lip service. So that taking off the boots is one of those things. Like, and when I'm super fucking exhausted and I sit down on the couch and you kneel down and take my boots off without me saying shit, like, I'm like, okay, she sees my exhaustion. I fell asleep on the couch the other night sitting up. Like,
Mhm.
you were like, babe, come on, it's 8:30. I know it's early, but let's go to bed. Like,
Mhm.
it's the same thing. You know, you could have let me stay there. You imagine how bad I'd have felt the next day if I'd have woke up and sitting
Yeah.
up sleeping all night. But
Yeah.
those things matter. They matter.
Zach said a small intimate moment before you guys take a little time apart after work. That could be important.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm going to apologize in advance because I'm not very good with speaking, but with like beforehand in my brain before to get the words out. So I try to like talk and think at the same time.
Mhm.
And it doesn't help either that my hands are so clammy right now talking to you guys and I'm sweating. And I'm like a little bit fangirling about the whole thing.
Stop it.
I love how
Uh,
honest you are right now, though. I get it.
I'm like secretly hiding in a gym parking lot in the back corner waiting because my boyfriend's actually waiting for me inside doing his thing. He's got no idea. And I'm sitting here and I'm sweating talking to you guys, trying to figure out like how I can be better for him because I know that I don't process the same way that he does. And I want to be able to do that. And I want to be able to take that moment and tell him, like, I'm overstimulated. I need a second without making him feel like it's him and it's more of a me thing.
That's how you tell him.
I would start that conversation with, I appreciate everything you try to do in my moments where I'm overstimulated.
Mm-hmm.
It means so much to me that you're so willing to help me. What you're doing is not helping, though. What can we brainstorm together? Like, if you need a hug when I get home and we make out for 5 seconds and I can go and puddle off for an hour or so, compromise.
Yeah, we've gotten pretty direct
Mm-hmm.
with that, like, because it's not personal. I know it's not an attack. When you say you're overstimulated, it's not something I've done.
No.
Because if it's something I've done, you start the conversation with, "Hey, the other day when,"
Mm-hmm.
okay, now I know it's something I've done. This is not a me problem. This is a her problem.
Yeah.
So that direct communication, I mean, everybody's like, "Oh, I love how direct Chris is." It's because it's easy.
Mm-hmm.
It's too much effort to beat around the bush. I'm just gonna say it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like I got very lucky in that sense as well. Like, I am really giddy with the idea that I'm his first love and his first girlfriend, and he's grown up with all girls. So I definitely have, I guess I'm not, I don't want to say sensitive, but he's more sensitive than a lot of guys that I have met previously. And he's really good with being able to talk about emotions. And he's got a lot of patience, especially when it comes to me being overstimulated. I think it was just a general concern in my own head, being worried that that's something that would affect us. But I mean, if we're communicating the way that we have been, I guess that's really all that we can do.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Was that the end of the email, babe?
It was.
Okay.
Okay, before we move on, do you feel guilty in a sense?
Yeah, because like I want to be able to be there for him, and I don't feel like because I like love even just being in the space with him. Like even if we're not doing something, just seeing him at the desk and I'm like in the living room on the couch, like that's enough for me to feel good and safe when I need it, especially when I'm overstimulated and I don't want to block him out. Because he like
So,
comes in, he's so happy and like he's got ADHD himself, so he's always moving around, he's being goofy, like he's farting in the kitchen, like he's doing his thing. And then if I'm not where he is, it just I don't want to take that away from him either.
I would tell him that too then. I would say, like, I feel guilty in these moments. And I would also say just existing in a room together is enough. Like, you don't have to go above and beyond and try to fix it all. Just being in the same room as me, doing your thing, it helps a lot.
Yeah, I really appreciate that.
Mhm.
Especially because he's so laid back. Like he does his thing and he's not bothered or affected by much, and he's really good at being able to just ride things out. And I just feel like I take things very personally, I guess, or I feel things really hard. So even when he doesn't mean to, I have a hard time separating the two.
I get that. I would recommend reading the Four Agreements.
The four agreements. Okay.
Mhm. I hope we were able to give you some helpful advice.
No, you definitely did. I think that I've done as much as I could possibly do, and I was curious to see like your outlook on it, just based on every time that you even like feel things in the podcast and get emotional.
Mhm.
I can feel that and I get it. So I was just kind of curious on how you looked at it, and just hearing that was enough.
Dope.
But I do want to thank you very much for taking the time to read the email because that is really cool. And again, this feels really super duper surreal that I even made the cut on there. So that's cool.
Well, thank you for your
Um,
support and being a part of our Patreon.
absolutely.
All right, go lift some weights.
All right. I'm going to go do that. Thank you so much, guys.
Go and tell your man you appreciate him too.
Oh, he's going to go get a big ol' smooch by the time I get in there.
Hell yeah.
Thanks, y'all.
Have a good one.
Yep, have a good night.
You too.
Okay.
Trying to build a relationship with my dad. Hey guys, first, thanks so much for the hard work that everyone puts into the podcast, all the content and merch. This podcast has been a much needed bit of positivity in my life and the lives of so many. Please keep up the good work. I'm writing to you guys for advice on my relationship with my dad. We haven't ever really had a relationship. When I was young, he got a promotion as a warehouse manager and was not treated fairly, which led to him getting home extremely late and frustrated every day. When he was home, any little thing would set him off. So he was either absent or just fuck. I'm tired. So he was either absent or just a very negative presence in the house. If he wasn't actively mad, he would keep to himself and stay in the bedroom, no family dinners, minimal family outings, and rarely even watching TVs or movies together because he wasn't ever willing to compromise on what to watch. Even if he came home and I was standing in the room he entered the home in, I would rarely get a glance or a greeting, but the dogs sure did.
That's because dogs love unconditionally and people don't.
Well, I mean, as a child, I think that's kind of a...
It's a shitty thing.
Yeah.
But that's the reason why that happens. So, I don't know these people. I don't know their life.
Mm-hmm.
But I have been that guy that hated everyone in my fucking house but the animals. And it's because the animals don't hold judgment. They're not ruining my life. Like, I'm not saying that kids do, but kids kind of do. But that whole situation is like, if he's got a really bad relationship with mom and he comes home and he doesn't want to be there and he's in John Wick mode, fighting for survival, the dogs don't have that. Like, the dogs aren't taking sides. They're not making things worse. Like, that's where that comes from. And it sucks.
Sometimes he would come into my room to talk to me, but would just pet the dogs and leave without saying a word to me. Or say, well, as he walked out of the room.
That's him looking for a connection that didn't happen.
Yeah.
I do that.
What do you mean?
I'll walk into the kids' room, be like, what you doing? And they'll just watch TV. Okay. And I'll walk out.
We're taking away the TV.
Yep. There's it's a request for connection. Yeah, I honestly believe that if he didn't want that connection, he wouldn't have walked in there. Yeah. Again, I don't know him, but
Even if he did stay in the room, as he asked well, I would sometimes try to come up with something to say, and I was met with a minimal response, and then he would just leave. Other times I would ask, well, what? And he would then ask if I had anything to say. This comes across as, is there anything important I need to know, rather than, how was your day? Or how are you doing? Tone and wording play a big part in communication. Tone and wording play a big part in communication. He eventually got another job, and the intimidation became almost non existent. He never hit us, and that was never a worry. However, he became friends with a female coworker. Actually, there were two, but the main one at this point is the second woman. At the time, she was married, and he introduced my mom to her and her husband. They were all starting to become friends and even planned a couple's vacation together. But after everyone paid for everything, the female coworker and her husband split. The female coworker still went on the trip with my parents as she had already paid her part, and my parents felt bad that she was going through a separation. This led to her being at our house at least every weekend and even for dinner after work sometimes. My dad was a new person around this other woman. He actually came out and had dinner with us, would talk, laugh, joke, watch what we wanted to watch, and eventually this woman would be in our house all the time, even sleeping over on the couch on occasion. That would fuck me up as a kid, not gonna lie.
Yeah, it was weird to watch.
I can imagine. You can imagine what this did to my parents' marriage. They weren't happy before. I could write so much more about how he treated my mom. But my mom couldn't take it anymore as he wanted to buy land and build a cabin for them and a tiny house for this other woman with their money. My dad denied that he had feelings for this other woman and did not want a divorce, but would constantly push for all of them to move together. It was so obvious by his behaviors and how he would light up when she was around that he was falling for her. For over a year, my mom and I watched my dad fall in love with another woman in our own home. Why was your mom allowing this?
Okay, the real question is how come nobody noticed him falling out of love?
Yeah.
Right? This falls into the whole thing that we've talked about, how men's feelings don't matter.
Yeah.
Right? How we bottle shit up, we sit down, we push it down because we're not going to talk about it. Nothing's going to change. This email is exactly what that looks like. So for all of you who are in a relationship where your husband is shut the fuck down, that's what that feels like. So they watched him fall out of love. Nobody said shit about that. He isolated. But then when he started falling in love with another woman, the signs were there. The relationship with the mother was done. Like, this whole situation is a bad situation to be in, and it sucks. I'm not like, this isn't about the email, or this is more about the recognition that this is what men go through.
Right.
I don't know. That's rough. It speaks a lot on all the shit that we've been talking about lately with the way that men are treated. And I'm not saying that the man is in the right for fucking messing around with a new woman or falling for a new woman while married, but those signs are there.
Yeah, I don't think my parents ever really had a happy, healthy marriage. From the beginning, like he's kind of always been standoffish and set in his ways. You know, I don't know. It's I don't think they were ever really happy in the marriage, and then like he fell out of love.
Did so were the kids the reason that marriage happened, or how did that
No.
play out?
My mom broke up with him because he was super jealous and you know, standoffish and set in his ways and everything. But they just couldn't get over each other, so they got married, and then here we are.
Crazy.
This is the fallout of not thinking long term.
Yeah, and I think my mom was just this like a security blanket for my dad. Like, she's very nurturing, takes care of him, is the middle person between him and the rest of the world. No one bother him, no one upset him. I'll be the face. You just go hide and go to your cave, so to speak.
We always thought my dad was not capable of being a normal person, and he was just broken and did not know how to communicate. It was shown to both of us that he was capable, he just not put in the effort with us. Was there any effort put into him?
Yeah, we would try to get him to come out with us and Um, we would try to suggest things to do as a family, and he just wasn't interested. Again, didn't want to compromise and watch what we wanted to watch. And sometimes we would watch what he wanted to watch just so we could all be together. And he allowed that because it was what he wanted. Um, but and like my mom's family, he was not interested. We would invite him to come out with us, and he would either go and ignore everyone and just be on his phone and ignore people, or and it just got to a point where I was like, okay, you don't have to come. You obviously aren't interested, and you're being rude, so you can just stay home. And that's kind of how it was. We all just did our own separate thing, and then if we were all home, he was back in the bedroom watching TV, and we were all out as a family.
Okay.
I'm curious before you move on. I'm curious if the events when you guys went out, if he didn't want to go, if it was problematic. Like, were there fights because your mom wanted him to go along, even though he didn't want to go, and then he went, and then things would fall apart because of it, or
Sometimes, more so, my mom would just be upset if he was really rude. Like my uncle would walk up to him and like try to shake his hand and talk to him, and my dad literally like was just on his phone and completely ignored him. And um, he just you could just tell he was unhappy to be there. Um, didn't want to talk to anyone and just kind of shut off. Um, and then when we started going by ourselves and he stayed home, we were gone too long, he would like lock the bedroom door and wouldn't let my mom back in. And
oh, okay. Was
crazy.
was the uncle his brother or her brother?
Her brother-in-law.
Okay. Wait a minute. So then it was if it was her brother-in-law, it would be his brother, right? Or do you mean like does your mom have a sibling?
Yeah, she has a
Okay,
sister.
that got married. Okay, that makes sense. Okay. It sounds to me like your dad has control issues.
Yeah.
And
For
there's a
sure.
lot of immaturity there, and like he wants everything to like yeah, okay. There's a lot there.
Mhm.
All right, I don't want to assume anything. Let's continue reading.
All right. My mom finally left my dad. For a while, my dad didn't think my mom was actually going to go through with the divorce. There's, of course, more drama surrounding that, but I don't want to trauma dump. When he realized my mom was actually leaving him, he tried to communicate with me more. I was hesitant after all the years of neglect and negativity. But he's my dad, and I don't want to have regrets one day. We kept arguing, though, because either his lack of communication skills, I wasn't putting in the effort he wanted me to, would be upset that I didn't want to do anything with him and the other woman. But I do stuff with my mom and her boyfriend all the time.
So why is it okay for your mom and not your dad?
Just because of the situation surrounding it. My dad got with this woman while still married with my mom and wouldn't be honest about it. But my mom got into this relationship after she left. And I was like, if you would just be honest with me, then I can get through the emotions and then uh you know, hang out with you guys. But I would like that honesty. I'm your daughter. Like you can be open and honest with me.
So you so he has not admitted to being with that woman while they were married?
He has now, and I get into that a little bit later in the email, but at that point, he had not. And so I was like, if you would be honest, I would hang out with both of you guys.
Right. Let's just read the whole email and then we'll
Okay.
because there's no point in breaking it down if there's more context.
I told him so many times that I needed honesty from him regarding the other woman, and I needed him to put more effort into communicating with me and not go about it so bluntly or aggressively. And with time, I would feel more comfortable putting in more effort as well. But I needed those from him to feel safe to do so. He dropped the ball my entire childhood that we cannot get back, and I feel like he can be the one to put in more effort and communication for a little while. There were many times I would just look past his bluntness as I know he struggles, and that's his way of trying. But he would then try to push me for a little to let the other woman come to lunch with us. But then he would try to push for me to let the other woman to come to lunch with us, and we would butt heads. He was not satisfied with a casual texting relationship and the occasional lunch, even though I'm an adult and he and the other woman are moving, as my parents plan to. And that's essentially all our relationship would be anyway. We even went to therapy together, but anytime I talked about our past and how it made me feel, he said I was either too sensitive, didn't remember correctly, or he was just joking, like making fun of what music I was listening to. We obviously don't have the joking around kind of relationship. All he wanted to do was forget about the past and move on. If we don't acknowledge the past, the behaviors will not be corrected, and our relationship will continue to be strained. Because he would not take my feelings into account by needing his honesty or needing him to work on his communication, I cut him off. I made this decision when we met for my birthday, and he told me he and the other woman were not together and had never been, even though months prior he had told me that they were together. She was even staying with him in his one-bedroom apartment. This was the opposite of progress or truth. I did not speak to him for about a year. He ended up in the hospital. Okay, have you seen them do couple things like holding hands and kissing and doing all the romantic stuff?
I hadn't, because I hadn't really been around him, and I wasn't okay with the other woman being there. Um, but he had said that they were together, and then kind of went back and forth, and then on my birthday he was like, "No, we aren't together. We never have been. Like, I don't know what you're talking about."
Okay, so if you've never witnessed them being in a relationship, what if him admitting that they were together was just him trying to like, okay, I'll admit this and I'll finally be able to have a relationship with my daughter?
I mean, maybe they are together now though, and I have seen them be that way now. So
Okay.
I mean, like I said, I feel, I guess I feel like they definitely were together, and my mom actually saw them um before the divorce, but while they were separated, my mom passed them in a parking lot, and so she pulled in, and he was in her car in the driver's seat, and she was in the passenger seat on her knees, leaned toward my dad.
Okay, I was gonna just wait until this is done, but I need to address a couple things. I can't just sit here in silence. First and foremost, as a kid, you're not gonna get the full spectrum of what goes on in your house. And I see people in the chat saying that kids are there all the time, even when they're not present, they're catching shit. Kids are gonna get a small portion of things from the parents, but even if they see other things, they may not understand all of it. And I guarantee you, kids don't see everything. So that's the first thing. Second, you said in there that he missed your childhood, and you haven't forgiven him for missing your childhood, but you're actively missing out on your future because of you're harboring things. So you're doing the exact same thing he did while holding resentment towards him for missing out on those things. I don't think that was relevant to this one. You said that you were wanting more time with your dad, and then you said that you were making him exclude his wife or woman or whatever she is to him from these dates in order to like spend time with you. So you're making him choose the woman that he's currently with over you. And when you put a man in that position, and you put anybody in a position of an ultimatum, there's a very strong possibility you're not going to win. I don't care who it was. If somebody came down here and said, Peaches can't come to lunch, I'm not going. I don't care if it's my kid, my mom, my grandmother, my spiritual leader. You are my wife. You take precedence over everything, including the children. Okay? And then lastly, I am curious as to why, as his daughter, you feel like you have the ability to dictate his relationship with this new person.
I don't. I just wanted honesty that they were together, and that he had feelings for her. I just wanted, if you want a relationship with me, you did neglect my childhood, and it is what it is. It's in the past. But to move forward, how are we going to build a relationship based off of lies? And if you're going to keep coming at me with an attitude, That doesn't
Well,
fix anything.
I can't speak on the attitude, but I can speak on the
Mhm.
relationship aspect. His relationship is none of your business.
Yeah, I agree with that. There is an entitlement there that you think you deserve to know the ins and outs of that, and you don't.
Right. And that's not to shit on you. Like, I understand that you're trying to build a relationship with him, but
Mm-hmm.
there are facets of your relationship as an adult that nobody else is privy to. Doesn't matter if it's your parents or even your own kids. And I'm assuming you sound young. No offense, you sound young. So I'm assuming you don't have kids of your own. But one day you will have kids of your own, and you are going to omit things to your children because it's not prevalent to their life
Mm-hmm.
or their survival. And you're going to have to make really fucking hard decisions that could impact your children in a negative way. And in the moment, you think you're making the best decision for your family or for your kids. And I'm not saying your dad was right. He sounds like he was an asshole.
Mm-hmm.
So, full disclosure, I'm not defending him,
Mhm.
but there are multiple sides of all of this. And you have a very me standpoint. And you need to understand that there are other emotions and other people involved in all of this. I
For sure.
really, I hope that you're able to. There's more to this, but I hope that you've been able to at least resolve some sort of relationship with him. I mean, it sounds like he's trying now, and if he's never done so before, he obviously loves you and wants you to be in his life.
He ended up in the hospital. He's too private to fully tell me what happened. And so I told him I still needed honesty and effort from him to be able to work on our relationship. He told me he maybe had feelings for the other woman while still married to my mom. This makes me uncomfortable, I'm not going to lie. I would not be having these kinds of conversations with either of my parents, and they both have done very fucked up things to one another. As a child, I know what I went through, and what you did to me specifically is that's the target of our conversation.
Right.
It's unfortunate that what he did played out in front of you.
You can't make your kids pick sides, though. You know what I mean? And like, if and this is all about the dad, so we don't know the situation of the mom. But if
Mhm.
mom was in her ear the entire time saying, I can't believe he did that to me, and he abandoned us, and he was an asshole, and he was this, and he was that, there's a negativity bias being created there.
Mhm.
Like, it's not. There's just more to this. There's so much more to this that's not being
Mhm.
ousted because she doesn't have all of it. You know what I mean? I truly believe that.
I will say my mom never was negative about my dad in my ear or anything. She always stood up for him and, oh, well, you have to be understanding. He's been through a lot. So he's just really emotionally immature. Give him a chance.
That's talking shit about him though. To say that he's emotionally immature, that's a negative statement. Like,
Mhm.
you're now going to view your father subconsciously as somebody that can't handle their emotions when maybe they just couldn't resolve their conflict and he reclused. Like,
Mhm.
that is a negative statement. That's judgment. I mean, technically it's kind of shame too if you think about it. Had he heard that, that would have been a shaming statement.
Yeah.
If Peaches told me that I was emotionally immature, I'd be like, damn. Like, there'd be a guilt in there that would follow. Like, that would be something that would create a behavioral change in me because I would want to be a better person. But if I heard that shit enough, or I heard that I'm emotionally immature, or that I'm stupid following that, or there was other things that were said out of drunkenness or an argument,
Mhm.
it would I would shut down. It would change the conversation. I don't know. It's just a lot. There's a lot to this.
There is a lot to this. I know that you're the daughter. In reading this, it sounds like you're the pissed off ex-wife. Like, you need to tell me if you had feelings or not. You need to tell me if this relationship was happening while you were still married. And I'm sure there's a defensiveness in you towards your mom. Like, I can't believe you did this to mom.
Yeah. Mm.
Do you and your mom talk about this?
We do. I probably too much.
That's a problem.
But yeah, for sure.
Mhm.
My parents, my dad was super absent, and my mom definitely stepped up too much
Mhm.
to kind of take care of that.
How long ago did this happen? Like, the woman moving in and the divorce and all of that?
Like 2 years ago,
And it's
year and a
still a
half.
hot topic for you guys, something that you talk about too frequently? Imagine all the things you guys are missing in life. be having so many different conversations about things. Do you want a relationship with your father? Like boiling down to everything minus everything that he's done, like emotionally, do you want a relationship with your father?
I mean, I'm not really connected to him emotionally. I would like to have some kind of relationship with him. But I would also like to not have the attitude or anything like that. And I know y'all can't speak to that because it's kind of hard to convey. But
Yeah.
I just, I'm like, I just want to be treated better.
I'm gonna be honest. If someone, every time I see them and they're hitting me with, you need to tell me the truth. I know you're lying to me. I need you to be honest. I might have a little bit of an attitude too.
I mean, I didn't press it that much, but
Mhm.
yeah, I definitely understand that.
Yeah.
I think that it's also important to remember that emotional connections are created
Mhm.
and then cemented. It's not something that's given, and men don't
Right.
have a natural connection to the child the way a mother does. And as children become their own people, we are able to
Relate differently.
disassociate with it almost. You know what I mean? So like there, it's not the same. The bond between father and child is not the same as mother and child. I guess is really just the simplest form of that. If you're an adult and you're having a conversation with your father and you're trying to reconnect and he's wanting to have a relationship, you can pause him. Be like, hey, I'm here because you wanted me to come and see you, and I'm trying to create a bond with you.
Mhm.
And I'm not going to be here if you're going to continue to talk to me like that. I don't have to be here. I can leave.
Mhm.
That reality check is like a kick in the nuts. Like you can really shut down an entire conversation by setting a boundary and then adhering to the shit. So if you set that boundary and he goes, blah, 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 just grab your keys and fucking walk out the door. And then 2 or 3 days later, be like, hey, you want to try again? Right.
Hmm.
I let him and the other woman back into my life. He had a somewhat major surgery, and I did reach out first a handful of times to check on how he was feeling and how he was going when he started back with work. I'll be honest, I don't typically reach out first, but since I was giving him another chance, I wanted to put in some effort in hopes that he would put in better effort as well. I would feel more comfortable reaching out first if we could have at least a couple of months where we reached out. I would feel more comfortable reaching out first if we could have at least a couple of months where we reached out. Do you mean he reached out?
Like both of us, we communicated and it was like okay, casual, no drama, no
Okay,
attitude on either side or anything like that.
gotcha.
It's going to take work. It's not going to
Mhm.
magically happen.
And he put in the deserved effort or did not reach out with an attitude manipulative text. This causes us to butt heads, and I let him know how he comes across, and it makes me feel, but he can't help himself. I understand he gets hurt when I don't put in the effort he wants me to, but I was hurt my entire childhood with his lack of effort. I have told him this as well.
So
That's harboring.
right, that sentence though, that statement just negates all of his feelings about what's currently happening because of things that happened in the past that he can no longer do anything about. All of that shit is done.
Mhm.
Everything that he did up until yesterday is done. Things that he did today is done.
Mhm.
He can apologize for that and start trying to connect with you to fix the problem, but that shit is over with. I had a really horrible childhood, and the only thing that's prevented me from speaking to my biological parents is that my biological parents are doing the same fucking thing that they were doing 20 years ago.
Mhm.
If I found out that those people had changed their lives and they were not living the way that they were, I would immediately reach out and try to like salvage that relationship. I don't I forgive my parents for all the bullshit, all of it. But I'm not going to put myself in a situation where my peace is going to be disrupted because that means more to me. My happiness and my sanity means more to me than my relationship with people who are going to bring drama into my life.
Yep.
So that is where that lies for me. But you can't hold that against somebody. You've done things to people that they may not like that you've done. You can't change it. The most that you can do is say you're sorry.
And change the behavior.
Right. But saying you're sorry doesn't mean shit. That's just wind passing through your vocal cord. It doesn't change anything. Nothing goes away. That forgiveness is a choice. And that can happen with your apology or without it. And it can happen for you towards him with or without an apology.
Right. I just wasn't necessarily bringing stuff up to like harbor on it. but more so like, hey, this happened, and I know you probably didn't mean for it to come across this way, or you just don't know what you're doing, but this is how it came across. Can we work on it? That way, you know, behaviors can be corrected that way going forward.
Okay.
I'm not being sensitive, I'm not getting hurt, we're not rehashing things, and we can actually work on the relationship.
Just recently, we all went to lunch, him, the other woman, and I. He barely talked, and I spoke to the other woman the majority of the time. Before we left, she went to the restroom. My dad was already on his phone, but didn't get off when she left. I understand how that could have comforted him in an awkward situation. He did ask me a question at least, but when I answered, he did not even glance at me as I spoke. I even expanded on my answer to him and gave him more to work with and respond to because I was there to work on a relationship. The more I talked and saw that he was not even going to look up from his phone, I decided to stop talking to see if he would respond. I finished answering, and he still did not look up or respond to my answer. After a minute or two of silence, the other woman came back. This happens just about every time I go out of my way to actually communicate with him. I am met with minimal to no response. Between our past, his minimal effort, and pushing us for how he wants things to be / us to be, I am often left not wanting to continue to put in more effort. My dad gets upset with me, but he never takes accountability and says it's a two-way street for relationships and communication. And he always brings up that even though he may not have been there for me emotionally, he was a hard worker so he could provide for us and it was a protector. And always made sure that I had nice clothes, a good Christmas and birthday, repairs around the house as needed, and the yard kept up. These things have earned my respect and are why I have put in as much effort as I have. But since these are things you do as a house owner, husband, and father, this does not mean I will take what I do not deserve. I tell him how he makes me feel when he communicates poorly, or, in the most recent situation, the lack of, and he always puts the blame back on me. Am I being too stubborn by not giving him more of a chance and by not being more understanding? Should I be putting in more effort? Or is his minimal or lack of effort a sign I should walk away again? I honestly feel as if he says he wants a relationship with me because he feels like that's what we should have, but really just wants to keep tabs on me and know what's going on in my life.
Here's okay. I'm going to answer that, and then I'm going to get into something else. You guys don't have a relationship, right? You share DNA. That's the extent of that. Like you had a childhood where he was there but not present.
Mm-hmm.
He's not very good at communicating. He's got his nose in his phone all the time. Like from everything that you've said, he's not a overly talkative person when it comes to the kids, right?
Mhm.
Okay.
Right.
So you guys need to establish a relationship, which means one of you is going to have to find something that the other is interested in to create a conversation that's going to engage both of you so that you can learn what's there.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know how old your dad is?
My dad?
No, her. I'm talking to.
Oh.
He's 48.
Okay, and you're 25.
Mm-hmm.
There's not a whole lot that a 50-year-old person has in common with a 25-year-old in terms of interests.
Mm-hmm.
You guys
Mhm.
are going to have to find some way to have a communication that's going to be on a level that both of you are going to be able to click on.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to point out, though, that when you were at lunch or dinner with this person, you referred to that woman as the other woman instead of as his wife or whatever she is to this man.
Mm-hmm.
So there's definitely a hang up there. And like we can in theory have conversations about your dad and what he's feeling and all these thoughts, but he's not the one writing in. We can only dissect what you've sent us. And it sounds like you both have things that you need to work on and you need to be able to talk about those, and you're harboring shit. You can hear it in the verbiage that you're using in the email. So like you need to maybe ask him to go to lunch with you where there's no phones, and like ask if you can have a one-on-one conversation so that you guys can kind of air things and tell him that you want the relationship, but you need to find common ground. And if you can't find common ground, the relationship's not going to matter. I can also tell you that as a father who has a 23-year-old, and I'm 43. I don't have a whole lot in common with my 23-year-old daughter. I just don't. Like we love each other, and like she's my kid, and every time she needs something, I'm there for her, and we randomly have small like how's life, how's work, how's the baby kind of conversations, but we don't have like even the same movie interests. So it's very hard to have life conversations with her that is not me parenting my 23-year-old kid. The other aspect of all of this is that I'm there when she calls. Like I will always be the dad, but I don't have that bond with her the way that I would have if I would have been there 24/7 and involved in her life and going to cheerleading, all the school events and dances and all that shit. You guys are going to have to build that relationship. It's going to take work and it's going to take effort. And maybe he just doesn't know how to connect with you. And maybe that's a conversation that needs to be said. Or maybe, there's a whole lot of maybes in all of this. But again, I think really what it comes down to is that you are responsible for you. He is responsible for him. And you guys are going to have to both do the work to make this work, or it's not going to happen. Because you can forgive and move on and love, but if he's not willing to hold a conversation with you, you can't build a foundation in silence. Like two people eating lunch in silence is boring as fuck. You're not gonna want to keep doing that.
Yeah, for sure. That's what I said to him. I was like, I appreciate you inviting me to lunch, and you did ask me a question. That's great, but if you're not gonna hardly talk, or when I do respond, if you're not gonna give me the time of day, you're the one asking for the relationship.
Do you ask him about his life?
Yeah, he mentioned one time, as an example, he mentioned that he was going to ride four wheelers with some friends, and I was like, "Oh, how'd you meet them?" And he just said through someone.
So it sounds like he's not a conversationalist.
Yeah.
He's not,
Yeah.
and he never has been, unless it's been with his girlfriend or the other female friend that he met at work. But they have stuff in common, so that helps.
Right. So when they're not um are they, see, I don't know how to word this, because you can have something in common and have somebody to talk to and still be quiet. Like some people are just reserved, silent people. Like they don't talk unless spoken to, kind of thing. And that can come down to childhood trauma. Like that's a whole different conversation, but that would be something that I would look at too. The next time you guys go out, if you're not talking and she's not talking, see how often your dad creates conversation. Because if he's comfortable sitting there in silence, that's just who he is. I have friends who won't speak unless spoken to, because as children, they were fucking hit over it. Like, I don't know. It was a very different time, but
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I get that. I'm the kind of person where I don't really say much, and I only speak unless, when I'm spoken to. But it's like, I guess because he tries to initiate conversation with again, that's appreciated, but is not, it's effort without giving too much effort. I guess that's how it feels, at least. And that's how it's always been. So it's, sometimes I do go out of my way to ask him about himself and work and what's going on, and then, he answers and then doesn't reciprocate, and that just doesn't feel good, I guess. Especially when I watch him actually communicate with, his current girlfriend, and the other woman, the
right,
friend.
right. But he has a relationship with them, and
Exactly.
he doesn't have one with you. Like that's one of those things that you're gonna have to build that. It's not a given. Those relationships have to be built. And it might be like pulling teeth with him to get him to talk to you, but it may have been like that with other people as well in the beginning. I don't know.
I would pay attention to how he's communicating with the people that he does communicate with.
Yeah, it's very different. He asks more questions, and just like with who he's with now, he's a completely different person, and laughs and jokes, and then when it's just us, he's just quiet and on his phone and barely giving me a response.
I would ask him why that is. I would straight up ask him why. Like, what can I do to have that relationship with you? Because that's what I want.
I have to try to pop my back. I can't
Okay.
Yeah, I have. I've been like, I see that you can communicate, and I understand it's not easy with me, but it seems to come naturally for you with them. What can we do? And he's like, I don't know.
It's a lot to process and it's a lot to think about.
Yeah, I'm sorry. It is a lot.
No, you don't have to apologize. No need to apologize at all. He always knew what was happening with me through my mom, and now he doesn't have that. I'm just beyond frustrated and emotionally tired. I'm having a hard time finding the line of being a good person and doing the right thing, but also not taking shit I don't deserve, especially because I know he is capable of proper communication, as I've seen it with both female coworkers he befriended. Anytime I try to get advice from my mom and her boyfriend, they beyond sympathize with him and think he deserves to be in my life no matter what. My mom sympathizes with him because she was with him for many years and she knows how much he loves me and wants a relationship with me. Her boyfriend sympathizes because he used to be a lot like my dad. The difference is he was never neglectful, and since being with my mom, he has put in a lot of effort and has become a better person. He still has a long way to go, but in the short time that he's been in my life, he has been more of a dad to me. He compliments me, encourages me, and gives me advice, and actually does things with all of us. He has a 12-year-old daughter that is with us most of the time. All of my friends think that it's good that I've put in the effort I have, but should cut him off. They all have family issues of their own, so I'm needing some non-biased advice, and who better than to be better?
My non-biased advice is that trying is trying.
Mm-hmm.
You can't make someone love you the way that you want to be loved. They can only do it the way that they're capable of loving.
Right.
And until that relationship is built, his effort is still effort. It's better than nothing.
Mm-hmm.
You know how many people out there have fathers who don't speak to them at all and don't give a fuck about what's going on in their life? That effort is still being put in. It may not be a lot and it may not be the way you want it, but it's there.
Mm-hmm.
And as long as he's putting in the effort, you should be doing the same thing. And when the effort stops, match that energy.
And I would still
Mhm.
draw the line on the attitudes, and
Yeah.
if we're going to do this, you're not going to speak to me this way.
Right.
I would also stop having communications about him with everybody.
Yeah.
They have given you your feedback. You know your mom's position on him. I would start to formulate your own opinions on things, and I would take a step back of wanting to know the details of his relationship with the other woman. That is, wanting to know the details of that is a control thing.
Yeah, I never really wanted to know details necessarily, but just, I watched you with her. I watched you fall in love with her, and I saw how you handled the divorce, and it was super negative, and so it would just be nice to just straight up, yes, I didn't mean for that to happen, but it did. Move on, and her be around, which he finally admitted, and she's around. So
Yeah, like Chris said, he's not going to love you the way that you want him to love you. He's not that man. He's never been that man. I think that there might be a blockade for him there because you did see all of that shit and he might be ashamed of it. And that might be hard for him to process because he could feel like a failure as a dad. So
yeah,
even if he's not willing to admit that, I would take that perspective in consideration too.
for sure, that's definitely something I've thought of and tried to keep in mind and give grace. It's just been a lot.
Yeah. If you need a break, tell him like that I'm going through a lot. There's a lot I need to process, and if we are actually going to have a relationship together, I want to do this in the best mindset so I don't sabotage a possible relationship with you.
Have you told your dad that you forgive him?
I haven't, so that's definitely something that I could do and definitely need to say.
Yeah. I think that might change the interactions a little bit. And in honesty, like, that's a shitty place to be in to have to say some shit like that to your parent, but that's part of that grace.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe that's a step towards healing things.
Yeah, it could
And,
be.
and if he hasn't apologized, maybe that will be the thing that gets him to do it.
And it might take a day or two. Like he
Right.
might have to process the fact that you just hit him with, I don't hate you and I forgive you.
Right. And it could take a lot longer than that. It could fuck him up for a little while.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But it's important that I think that needs to be said. But
Yeah, we've had similar conversations. And it was after I started talking to him again after cutting him off, and we had good communication for a little bit, and so I was starting to put in more effort, and then um that's when like sorry, manipulative text and stuff would kind of come through over like if I was putting in as much effort or sharing as much as he wanted me to.
I don't know what the manipulative texts look like, but that's an entire conversation to be had on its own.
Right.
But all I'm going to get into the text message thing is 80% of communication is nonverbal, and when you have a text message conversation, you're not getting the full conversation, and
Right.
your bias in your brain is going to dictate the way that message reads because Peaches and I love each other unconditionally, and there are very, very few times that we're ever shitty with each other. And there have been times that a text message come through and I've had to call you and be like, "What the fuck was that?" And you're like, "What do you mean? What was that?" Like, it happens because something else could be going on, and you could read that shit and take it completely out of context. Not saying that that's what happened with you, but the text conversation is a problem. I would try to talk to your dad over the phone,
Yeah.
at least until you guys are able to figure out how to communicate with each other, because you don't have a relationship, you don't know each other. So it's
Yeah,
gonna be it's a problem. You guys you're starting at ground zero.
right.
I'm sorry you have to go through this.
Well, hopefully it'll get better.
I will certainly pray that it does.
I appreciate that a lot.
No matter what the outcome is, I hope that you're able to find happiness in it.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Of course.
So with that being said, thank you guys for tuning in. We hope that you got value from the podcast, and we will see you on the next one.
Have a good night, guys.